So my name is Philippe van Caenegem. And it's really a great honor. And thank you, Milan. Thank you, DMI, for inviting me. Also for giving the trust of doing a closing keynote. Which, again, it's really an honor. I was thinking, like, how should I do this? We tend to have, at Salesforce, a pretty strict corporate style in doing presentations. And I thought, you can't possibly do that for a closing keynote to this audience. So I looked up what is kind of design thinking and all this stuff. And the best I discovered was something like this. Somehow. Didn't really get it. So I thought, I'll do my presentation like that, my keynote like that. It's going to be quite messy. So my apologies to start with for the messiness. I gave my challenge to keep my presentation completely open-ended until about 5 minutes ago. So I didn't really know what I was going to say about 5 minutes ago. Puts a little bit of stress on my shoulders, so bear with me. It's going to be like this. The other thing that I would like to propose you is, well, you've been sitting a lot, most of the day. And when we sit, our body thinks that we're not doing much, because we're not doing much. And it sends signals to our brain. We produce less endorphins. You know what happens when you produce no endorphins? You get Parkinson. I don't want you to get Parkinson. So can you please all stand up? Don't worry, I'm not one of these religious priest gurus. You're not going to faint at the end. There's no harm, I hope, right? Stretch, stand up. I would just like to do one small experiment. It's not going to take very long, just a couple of minutes. The first one would be, just close your eyes and for 30 seconds, let's say, please think of the definition that you would give to design. That's the first. And second definition, your definition to design thinking. Okay? I'll give you some silence for a little while. Cool. That should be way more than enough for all these people that know this thing. So first of all, I'd like you to ask the question now. On my count, on 3, if you could just shout out all together your definition for design towards one another. It doesn't need to be to me. So are you all ready? So let's go. 1, 2, and 3. Should we retry that? Try to be in tune. 1, 2, 3. There's some soundbite in there. Let's try design thinking now. Like your second definition was for design thinking, I'd asked. So everybody ready for that? So let's try on 3. 1, 2, and 3. It's all short. I'm very keen on continuing the discussions that we had, but I thought this would kind of happen. And to get back to Eric Quinn, 3M, imagine that we would be saying that to the CEOs. It's kind of like, I don't know how clear it all is, right? It's one of the big challenges that we still have. What is exactly design? What is exactly design thinking? Again, I've been having one-on-one conversations with many of you. We still, I think, up to today, don't have a nicely fitting definition for that. And if we see that there's added value and that designers should be at the table, that's my theme, by the way. And I'll give you the spoiler. You can, by the way, sit down. Sorry for that. You can also stay up, huh? I didn't want to. So my spoiler, why designers are getting at the table, is, well, if you saw me back there, that's why designers are getting back at the table. I set myself at the table. Yeah. So I'm a designer, actually. I'm an architect by training. And I rolled myself by accident into management consulting and then started having added value. We had great discussions on to see that there's other geeks like that that are capable of doing this. Mouton à cinq pattes, they call this in French, the sheep with 5 feet. And I think there's many of you in that shape. So why are designers getting a seat at the table? I'm going to try to make that part like the red thread, right? But the first and the spoiler that I would take away is, Well, some do. It's those that take the seat at the table. Now, is that a good reason for them to have a seat at the table? I'm not sure. But let's go and take a step back. As an architect, you know, we're always told we're very conceptual and we think of the big things. Well, we were trained often to make buildings that should last, I don't know, hopefully a century. Today it's less, and that evolves with society, so we think about society, etc. And when I started thinking of how am I going to tackle this challenge on figuring out what's the added value of design thinking, when I was doing this type of activities about 10 years ago, I didn't even know that this was formalized as design thinking. I was just trying to survive somehow and find my job, added value. Then start moving into focusing on what is called the front end of innovation, which is just as messy. It's exactly the same thing, right? And started seeing that there's some clear definitions. For example, creativity, which is another one of these buzzwords, especially 10 years ago, which everybody would be using and everybody would have his different definition. European Commission had a, what was it, 130-page definition or something like that for innovation? So creativity, innovation, those are interesting topics and might be some reasons why designers could have a seat at the table. So creativity, first of all. Creativity is nothing else, and I think now the definition nicely stands, is nothing else than making new appropriate connections. For an appropriate connection, you need a context. You need to create a context in which this new connection, something new your brain makes, is appropriate. Oh, by the way, you can redo the exercise standing up if you want some more energy. But another typical question that I ask my audiences is, if you would rate your intelligence from below average, average, above average, high, very high. Like, can I have a shout out? Who says below average? Right? Who says average? Okay. Who says above average? Okay. Who says high? It starts to, yeah, it's the bell curve, right? Who says very high? Okay. Now my second question is, who thinks that they are creative? And let's take the same scale by accident. So below average. Oh, average. Okay. Above average. High. And very high. Great. Great to see some honesty as well. So my main question is for those that had a big difference. You see some people have a big difference with validating their self-analysis of creativity versus intelligence. And I wonder why that is. How could one be intelligent yet not creative? It's always been mind-boggling to me, right? Intelligence being the core of what the human intelligence can do is making new connections. So how could one be very different on one and the other scale? Still digging to find that out, how that is. So let's go back to our definition parts. Creativity being making new connections, hence using our intelligence, and innovation. What is innovation then? Innovation is nothing else than finding a way to create value from the creativity. And actually, Jobs puts it really nicely, I think. Innovation is creativity that ships. So at least there we're starting to have some building blocks. Now, why am I going there for the designers and the designers being at the table? Well, because even today still with innovation being galvanized and everybody's trying to do it, it's more than ever the reality for companies. And in a very specific way, innovation is more important than ever for companies. When you start seeing looking at which companies survive, for example, companies that were in the S&P list 500, S&P 500, 10 years ago that are still on it now, you start seeing that there's actually a couple of really key criteria that are left over for those that have survived. And this is either having a barrier of entry, right? You're a big infrastructure player, something like that, and hence no others can enter. Those barriers of entry are crumbling down because of the speed of technology, the knowledge that is omnipresent and that we can all access online. The internet has changed and is ever changing faster than given. So one is the knowledge, the information. The other part is the technology is speeding up as well. And let's say that you're a utility today. Well, there's coming up production of energy completely distributed because of the speed of technology allowing this. So the barriers of entry are crumbling down. The second criteria for companies to survive is their intimacy with customers. And we've seen, thanks to the great presentation of dear colleague McGovern, how hard it is actually, and that all these touch points is keeping us further away from the customer than anything else. So the customer experience and the excellence of a customer experience is becoming ever more an essential. And is the criteria. Now let's get back to the innovation and the reason why innovation and being able to innovate ever more is so essential. I actually managed to forget it, but we all have it in our hands. Our mobile phone, number one, and that's going to change as well, but our mobile phone gives us an experience today for which there's something special. The next best experience that you're having, right? The new, I don't know, app for Gmail, doing it just right, or the new Uber app or whatever, becomes almost instantly the norm with which we as consumers, but also employees, etc., are looking at the other companies that are offering us an experience. And we're saying, well, this is not so good. Why is this? Or, oh, this is really crap. They don't know me, they don't get me. So the speed with which companies need to innovate is increasing ever more. Okay, so we saw creativity, how creativity adds to innovation, how innovation is an essential for companies to survive. So still, why are designers, or why might designers have a seat at the table? Let me take a little diagram that I really love. It's an old one, but it's still extremely valuable in my point. It's Teresa Amabile from Harvard. Yeah, I know there's many diagrams like this. Mine is stolen from Teresa Amabile, Harvard Research on creativity. What are the ingredients for creativity to happen? These are, what she says, thinking skills. Oops. Well, not my drawing skills. Thinking skills, okay? Motivation and knowledge. And this is the sweet spot. That's where the real deep quality creativity happens. And one of the reasons for me that designers should be more at the table and are starting to be at the table more and more, we see that in startups, namely Airbnb. We see that at famous design thinkers starting to have positions in venture capitalist companies, are linked to those in several ways. The first one, and foremost, as I said, the importance of the customer experience. For this, you need several things to be really, really good at it. We've heard many of the quotes, and I wish I could retake them all, but the empathy, the importance of dealing with that, is something a designer should have mastered, right? The skill, the thinking skills to deal with this in a corporate environment, to structure this in a project, is something that architects, designers master. And last but not least, the motivation. Those weirdos in companies that want to take the risk. Risk of change being dangerous. Right? We've heard it in several ways, and what companies do to put in place a better risk culture, or should, to enable risk, a safer culture. We heard things again from Eric, from many people in that sense. So we start getting some of the ingredients. Now, let me ask you on the designer. There's another team that I want to go into. Who is a designer here? So that would be already almost half? Okay. So who's involved in a company, in your role, your function, by shaping something, making things better? All of a sudden, it's almost everybody, right? So what would be the difference? What would be the difference between a designer and somebody that shapes, tries to make things better in organization? I think there's very little, right? And that's what I wanted to clarify. And then again, I've heard the quotes, and we'll go later to some of the key quotes that I think are contributing to these elements. Designers are not just those that are trained to be a designer. Designer is in the head. It's the people that have the ability, the wish, the motivation to bring an important change, to make things better. Better, of course, for the customer. So I'd like to share, before I go any further, a little video where, oops. I hope you understand something.
We have this overall philosophy that not only is more and more of our technology going to be in the cloud, but much more of our technology that we offer to our employees has to be mobile, it has to be social, and it has to be able to fly through different devices.
Working together with Salesforce, their purpose for being here is to help us understand our customer base more effectively than we ever otherwise could.
There was a long-term solution which would be all around future-proofing, saying we need a company that is going to not just grow with us, but help lead us to new insights, new ways of working.
Not only in how we think of ourselves as connecting life and work, but how we think of ourselves as connecting to the lives and work of our customers.
Our mission is inspiring designs to help people do great things.
We've had the amazing good fortune of having several seminal moments in the course of our history that have redefined the course of design. With Salesforce, we're able to enter a new era.
Our business is becoming much more complex, and we're seeking to add a lot more value to our customers.
The way we engage clients really starts with saying, how do we understand the social change your business is going through?
Where Salesforce is really helping us is in how we are rapidly able to, across our complex organization, share knowledge about a customer.
The speed with which we can get to our customers is remarkable.
Having the mobile app is a huge, huge benefit to us. The spontaneity and the connectivity of being able to go right to your phone completely changes the paradigm.
We're not in one place, we're not static, and we're out on the road in front of our customers having these conversations real time.
Our folks being able to walk in to see a customer with the most relevant, most current picture is absolutely critically important. The mobile technology of Salesforce is going to help us do that better than we ever otherwise could.
Having the Salesforce One platform as a central area for us to connect with each other, we knew that that would be incredibly important.
To have processes that are unique to our industry available via our mobile device is outstanding. We can build this on the platform, and it's available right away.
The Salesforce One platform is most important in the ability to get beyond islands of data, that we can actually go in and mine the information to create actionable items for us, our sales team, our product development teams. That, to me, is the ultimate win.
How a facility manager might be able to evaluate their space utilizing a custom app that we've created for them.
We are constantly not only putting out things like diagnostic tools, how do we help our sales force really understand what went behind our products?
Before you go into a given customer, you can search through our library of knowledge, insight, product information, and knock the ball out of the park.
We're starting to create a social net over all of what Herman Miller does.
I see folks illustrating how they won, why they won, sharing their successes, and all I got to do is stand out of the way and watch that all happen.
We're one voice, we're one team working together around a common aspiration for our customer. And it's just been phenomenal being a part of that community.
sure. Small moment of ad, and please do try the platform if you don't have it. An essential quote that I heard as well from Eric Quint from 3M was that beyond the fact of this design mentality, wanting to change something, having the skills, either through formal education or acquired over the road, the empathy to go further is key in organizations. But also the notion of realizing that you're part of an ecosystem, not that you're supposed to lead that ecosystem, is, I think, an essential in these days. No good innovation in companies comes anymore from one silo, be it engineering, marketing, or design. It's those that collaborate across them. And today there's the tools, and embracing those tools is essential. And that's another reason, by the way, why I think more and more designers are getting a place and their place at the table, because technology is becoming accessible. Technology is not anymore for only the engineer-minded, the people that had to dive into code. I'm from back in those days. We used to make games and go into assembler and what have you, and it's not fun, it hurts. Today, that's needed only for very, very few people. You can do wonderful things with technology. Technology is opening up, is being democratized, and the way that designers, design mentality, add value by use of technology, think differently, think only about Airbnb, for example, as an inspiration that I often use with my clients, is becoming essential. So I don't think it's a power battle. It's a capacity, an ability that is really unique in the design mentality. We are very much in the beginning, though. And as we've heard with my tiny experiment, the clear voicing of what design is, what design thinking is, let alone where the value sits, it's still noisy. It's very noisy. I don't know if you heard it. There's a couple of red threads and things that we heard in the presentations. I'd love to share some of the things that I just picked out. This doesn't mean that I covered the whole conference, but I'll do that in a second, but it's still very noisy. And I very much appreciate the effort of Milan to propose a framework to make different disciplines that want to make a change, that are possible agents of change within an organization, understand one another, have the same vocabulary, framework, perhaps one day subset of tools. That for me would become a dream. And I'd love to share a little video that I think some of you know, but in any case, I felt like sharing.
If you've learned a lot.
This is all about how do you start a movement. And I think that's what is needed. It's a new type of movement. Not a movement to take over all the companies, not a movement to put designers on all the boards of the world, just a movement to make things better.
Thought about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
So on that, I officially stand behind Milan. Right, and I think some of you already did. Again, I think there's a need. It also clarifies, though, that once more, leadership is overrated. And let's not forget the story about the designers getting a table. It shouldn't be about leadership. It should be about wanting to start the movements, right? This is about multiple movements. But again, I think the project is very valuable, highly needed, and rightly timed. Now, there's been other movements that have been created. And I'm happy to say that I'm part of a movement that was created. Imagine pre-2000. Do people, some of you, the youngsters, perhaps they don't even realize how the internet was back then? Some others do. Imagine somebody speaking out and saying, you know what? Let's put some of the business processes online. Let us access your key elements, information on your client, online, in the cloud. I met some of these people, first lonely dancers there. And I have the luck to still work today for a founder of a company that was one of those. Because that's what people thought back then. This is completely insane, right? Today, it's proven that it was a worthwhile movement. And not without a reason. Let me share you some of these elements. Before I go there, there's going to be a little bit of product information. I'm not sure that you're all going to buy Salesforce right away because of my pitch. But since we're a stock-noted company, I need to read this all out in detail, and you need to agree with it. No, I'm joking. But I'm just saying, if there's some product information, you should never buy because of what I'm saying, but because of analyzing the product. It's just a legal obligation, which is this text saying in very long. This is our founder and visionary, and what he says today, and what he realizes. The reality is, if that's all I focused on, he's speaking about shareholder value. My company would be a disaster. The reason my company is successful is because I am focused on my stakeholders, not my shareholders, right? It goes further. To really think and be successful as a CEO today, you need to think in a multi-stakeholder framework. And that's what's important. That's really what drives me every single day. And same here. That's what drives, that's what motivates. It's not about, big companies are not about making money for their shareholders. That's good because they can do that. It's not bad in itself, but that's not what it's about. We're working in a multi-stakeholder world. And this is really essential. This is part of the core DNA of us being founded in the cloud, and us, I mean Salesforce. So why is that? In the beginning, you have mainframes, you have client servers for those. I'm not going to bore you too much with technology. But all of a sudden, we make it all more easier. We make it possible for clients to put some of their enterprise applications in the cloud. And why is that? Because then they can focus on things that really matter. They can focus on innovating, on making things better for their clients, and hence being preoccupied only with the success of their clients, or how well it works for the end user, etc. And all the rest is taken care of. Now, that is a strong, strong vision, one that I really love to rally behind. There's no more hardware, there's no more software to buy, and on top of it, there's a rhythm of 3 times a year being able to get updates, innovations, new things, accessible right away, just like we're used to now when we think it's normal, but this within a big corporate environment. And that is changing a lot. So we started once more from the world where you had a few computers connected. Then you had some LANs and the first internets, and you had a couple of millions of computers connected. Billions of things being connected today, tomorrow trillions. This is going to take us again to a whole new world. A world where everything gets connected, a world where the data that flows between this is extremely valuable, and a world where there's a lot of new possibilities, new openings for designers to take their hands on and figure out how to make sense out of this. And again, it shouldn't be designers alone. You're doing this with an ecosystem. There is a gap, though. I don't know if you've noticed with most corporations. I've touched on it, but except a couple of those that offer us the excellence of the experience that we, again, take for granted and take as the standard right away, most corporations today are not capable of offering that, right? And I think we heard some examples. The amounts of touch points that are not real touch points, but that distance us for the customer, the amounts of ways that make life harder for you to actually connect, get things done, has increased. And we're only now getting onto a trend of companies starting to reinvest and challenge that, break that. So this is why our mission, our inspiration, is to be the customer company and to help others become the customer company. Really focusing on adding value, making things simpler, making things have more sense. And as we've heard so often, breaking the silos. These silos that exist today in companies for various reasons, and they exist in most companies, they are also reflected in their systems. And once you start breaking through these silos, again, tons of new opportunities open up, opportunities that we should embrace to use our creativity on altogether. So I'll go very fast, but this has implications, of course, on the ways that we sell. We've seen now the mobile phone entering, and soon the wearables and other ways to know way deeper your customer, be of more added value. As we've heard, and that's something that I deeply believe in, the millennials and millennial attitude is that we are ready to trade in a little bit of our data if we get something back. So how do you figure that out? Service revolution. Dumb machines are getting smarter, are starting to be connected, and again, fluidifying processes. Enormous amounts of opportunities for designers, design thinking, of thinking beyond the object, going way further, thinking of the information flows that are linked to that, thinking of the possibilities. So sometimes there's such low-hanging fruit. It's a story that I often use with my clients as an inspiration. I was in an airport, and I see this 65-year-old gentleman running out of the bathroom, telling his wife, honey, you won't believe it. She says, what? Calm down, what? You won't believe what I just saw. I washed my hands, and I used this hand dryer, and it actually worked, right? The new Dyson hairdryer, I don't know if you've tried it out. It was quite marvelous. Isn't it mind-boggling that this has been like an issue for 30 years, right? We go into an airport or wherever, we've been traveling, where you wash your hands, the thing doesn't work, the paper is not there, and what you do, you Your hands are more dirty than they were before, probably. There's so much low-hanging fruit today of just tackling a problem a little bit differently. Marketing, and I hear again brilliancy of our colleague McGovern saying, it's all bullshit. Just put a picture of somebody smiling on it. Well, the marketing revolution is happening, and again, thanks to technology. We are now capable, the technology is capable at least, of creating one-on-one relationships. But again, it's how do you make sense out of this? How do you shape this? That is work above all for designers, design thinkers. And then there's the community. 2.3 billion social users in 2017. Okay, we all have the Facebooks of the world, the LinkedIns, what have you. Corporations are not structured like that yet. How could you imagine something like Home Depot where you have nice expertise, people that have ideas how to do things differently, experts on how to build this, do that yourself, etc. Imagine the power of uniting all this information and electrifying it by making it available through communities. That can now be done. But again, you need to shape these dialogues. It just doesn't happen by accident. It's not the one-on-one technology. That is there. We can offer it. It's the role of shapers, people that want to change things, to embrace this, to get their organizations to do things differently, that will make it happen. I'll go very fast, but analytics has been touched upon. We're, of course, living the big data revolution. It, of course, opens up numerous questions, but also numerous possibilities. Again, a way to shape things, to give sense to things, is going to be essential. And then last but not least, apps. Many companies that I'm meeting are keen to become some kind of app company, Coca-Cola being one of them in Germany. You'll be seeing quite some nice evolutions. We're offering them as Salesforce the platform to, again, not have to focus on all the technological boundaries, but on where it creates value, how this changes something for a user. So building this all together is basically a key platform enabling many new possibilities. And all these possibilities should be completely focused on making the customer successful. And if you're a big company with other customers, making those customers successful and transforming yourself in a customer success company. Now, or end user or patient or whatever the case might be. Now, this is all not just going by itself because of technology. And that's why there's a unit called Ignite. So Ignite is Salesforce's unit that helps some of the customers figure this out. We can't help everybody. So again, I'm reaching out. All of the others that want to make things happen, reach out to your ways of doing that. But this is the specific way of doing things at Salesforce. So I won't bore you at this point with the detailed flows of how we do that and the process and the steps. In any case, to be very honest, they are similar and best practices in most organizations. What is important is to know that they exist and that I think they create value. And how do they do that? They do that by revisiting an existing vision. And let me get back to my theme of why designers are at the table. Well, this is one way that designers are, me included, at the table. Because we do this and we position this in both a bottom-up and a top-down approach. Very concretely, the Ignite process clarifies the vision, but gets, and before we launch ourselves, the approval from the highest level, from the executive sponsorship in a company to start. So that's a different way of some others of doing things. We start from getting the executive level approval to think, to reconsider the vision, and then pull down the different strats in an organization to mobilize all the others to play along. Again, you're part of an ecosystem. The only way that the designer is at the table, or anybody innovating and changing things, is you're part of the ecosystem. And you have to prove your role in that. But then, we rebring the added value of deeply being able, fast, deeply understand the real customer. That's why we call this persona-driven in my first slide. Everything goes through the eyes of persona. So even if we speak to executive level, we synthesize every of our story back down to the personas that we worked with, what changes in the life of an end customer, an employee, etc. So it goes really top-down, getting the right to play, getting the right to have an impact on the cultural change, because let's not underrate this. It's been mentioned so often. But also bottom-up by doing all the types of inside work, combining inside works of others, of external consultants, internal work, etc., and translating this into what can it change. So, sure, this is making my point, right? And so nice to hear that smarter people are making the point. That's why I selected the slide. The biggest driver of sustained growth is the client experience. That was what I was saying. If you compare the companies that are surviving, it's going to be more ever than so. It's the ability to focus on the client experience that is becoming strategic. Even so, it is not easy. It is not easy to try to stay ahead and be a world-class customer, being able to offer a world-class customer experience. The how can be overwhelming. And so again, this is where our types of services contribute a little bit by making it easier, simpler, and getting things done. Again, like Eric Quinn said, just doing it. Don't say that it adds value. Show that it adds value, and you'll move on. And that's very much in the core, in the DNA of what we tend to do. So to go back to the creation of the movement, I think, and I hope you can sense this from my passion, I'm only since a year in Salesforce, and there's a reason why I joined. It's because I really believed, when I analyzed how they were working, that they are deeply convinced, because of their model, because of how they are founded, that this is the future of companies to work. And by this, I mean being completely obsessed with the customer success. And that's fully in our DNA. And being completely convinced that this is an ecosystem play and that you can only do this by bringing the diverse talent around the table, focusing on the right issues, adding value, making things better, doing this together throughout the whole ecosystem. So I'd like to share a last video of another existing movement that's already a little bit more mature right now. And I'd love to all invite you, but it's not going to be on my cost center. This is called Dreamforce. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a very, I would say, American style of communicating, but believe me, this Dreamforce, already the name alone, the fact that people unite from diverse fields, programmers, marketers, C-level executives, designers, UX, UI, and spend almost a week together in San Francisco and dream together is something which is extremely powerful. So this is a movement that has become mature to such an extent that it's today about 130,000 people every year joining. So I would just like to open the invitation with this.
We gather from every corner of the globe. The greatest thinkers, innovators, and dreamers the world has to share. It's been called many things.
It feels like the movement.
The annual mecca for all things cloud computing. A great revolution. This is cloud meets Mardi Gras.
The biggest software event ever.
It's like a music festival for geeks.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Dreamforce here, and we have more than 150,000 people. Really an exciting time at Dreamforce. We've got some amazing new products this year.
We have to go faster than ever before, and that's what it's all about. You're going to love it. Okay. Be careful with that.
The opportunity to get right to our partners and customers alike, wouldn't pass it up.
To network with people.
To see everybody here together, so invested.
It's a can't-miss event.
This is an MBA in technology in 4 days. I cannot wait to go back home and start doing some of the things I learned.
At Dreamforce, it's about looking at the world, seeing the problem, and solving it.
There's only one way you succeed long term. Real success in any measure whatsoever comes when you do more for others than anybody else.
You can be in business, you can have a great company, and that can be one of the greatest vehicles for giving that you'll ever have.
We truly appreciate everything you've done for the community and you've done for the world.
What an extraordinary collection of men and women at Dreamforce. I love this company.
Innovation, fun, and giving back.
Yes, I will come to Dreamforce again.
There's only one place to learn this fast. Inspire so many while giving so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
There's only one.
Thank you all.
So on that note, I would like to push out my personal dream. This dream has already shaped up for somebody, for our founder. And again, it's an amazing event. Really, trust me on that one. Very energizing. My personal dream would be that the movement that is starting to shape one day has its own legs to stand on, its own videos to convince other people. It doesn't need to be 130,000 people, but hey, that proves what it changed, what it contributed, and why it was so important to really launch with a common language, understanding, and bring the maximum amount of shapers, dreamers, call it designers, call it whatever you want, into corporations, enabling them, empowering them to do a better job, to take more risks, to exchange like we did in these days, and to move forward. So on this note, I'd like to thank you all, and for those that are staying, wish you a really good stay in Berlin, and watch out for 1st of May. So thank you.
Thank you.